Hey y'all, welcome back to day 16 of this horse trailer renovation. I feel like this episode is kind of filled with a bunch of random things, but it really does make this trailer start to actually look like it is renovated versus just a whole bunch of random pieces of things just thrown together. So I went ahead and trimmed out this area right here. I typically don't like trim in the middle like this, but this is how it was already. This is just how they designed them when they built this horse trailer, and these panels were fine, so I did not take them out, but it's going to be hidden behind the couch anyway, so you're never going to be able to see that. I am going to go ahead and paint this front part right here. This color is Cracked Pepper by Behr, and if you see any color in that looks like this in any of my renovation videos, it's all the same color. I absolutely love this color because it's like a nice like charcoal color. It's not too dark, but it also is a nice like gray tone to it. And if you're asking why I didn't roll this, it's because I didn't want to have to take out a roller, and I already had a paintbrush around here, and it's such a small section. And I wanted to be able to cut it in where the cabinets are right there, so that's why I did that. But if you don't like hand painting things, then don't hand paint things. All right, so now that that wall is painted, I can go ahead and put the couch in. So this is exciting because y'all actually get to see what this couch looks like in here. So I'm taking these screws out, and if you remember the last episode, I did screw this in because I want it to be removable in case I need to take it out for something just like this. So I'm going to bring all of the parts in and then assemble them once they're in here. This is like a camel color couch, and it's not a jackknife, in case you didn't hear me say that in the last episode. But these pieces kind of just fit together, and I picked this because it doesn't have legs, and it's already kind of taller than I would like it to be, but there's nothing I can really do about that because I have the furnace and the water tank underneath, and so this is really as low as I could have made this couch. So now that it's all assembled, I'm going to go ahead and screw it into place. I don't want this thing sliding around, and so what I'm doing is I'm using the framing that I built already, and I'm screwing a screw directly into the frame of the couch. That way it doesn't move or go anywhere. This is always how I've done it. It's just easier, and I know that the couch isn't going to slide around, so that's just what I do. And then I can go ahead and put everything back together, fill in all of my nail holes. I know, savage for using my finger, but I didn't feel like going and finding my tool, so that's what I did. Plus, it's easier on this PVC trim to use your finger because it's like slippery and it just doesn't fill in well if you don't use your finger. So this door had stickers on it. I'm not really sure why, but I'm taking that off. And then I'm going to clean it, and we're going to make this door look really nice after this, but this sticker it was terrible, awful. So I don't know why. I guess they were just trying to make it look nice, but it didn't do its purpose. So here we are, taking it off. Now I have significantly sped this section up, and it's because this is a mute point. I did end up painting all of this. This is the original air conditioning for this trailer, and I hooked it all back up, and it ended up that it didn't work. So I think there was no Freon in it, and this is a closed system, so it's got a leak somewhere. You can't recharge RV air conditioning units. The compressor would kick on, but it would never get cold, which makes me believe that's what it was. And so I ended up upgrading this for my client to a Rec Pro one with a heat pump. That way, if she just wants a little bit of heat, she can turn the heat pump on instead of having to go turn the propane tanks on and use the furnace. So anyway, it was a great upgrade, but I'll get to that later on. This was also a mute point, which is also why I have sped it up so much, because this fridge also did not work. And in a perfect world, I would have tested these before I took them all apart. But the issue with that was there was so much water damage in the ceiling and in the floor that I wasn't sure if the contacts had gotten wet or if they'd been damaged. And I was worried that if I plugged it in, then something was going to spark, and you know the rest. So you can't really be too safe on that side. I'd rather just know the wiring is okay after I've rebuilt it and kind of go from there. So this fridge has two access panels on the back. One is the vent for the fridge that's up top. And the other one down below is so you can have access to the wiring and the propane fitting. And this is me just hooking back up the wiring, and I'll get to the propane fitting too. Something to note with propane fittings that I will get to later on is you want to make sure that if you're sealing them up in a place like this that's in the back of something, or anywhere really, you want to make sure that they're not leaking. And later on in the video, I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so now all that's hooked back up. I'm putting the screws back in, and this is where I realized that there's not really even any, there's power coming to it, but it's not doing anything. So my client just ended up opting to replace it, and that's where we went. Now this is one of the final outlets that I have to install. If you remember correctly, I rebuilt this cabinet right here, and I left this because for some reason, I don't know why they wired it like this, they have 3 wires hooked up to this outlet, which really just drives me absolutely nuts in a trailer, because in a house it wouldn't matter. You could just, join all the wires, make a pigtail, and blah, blah, blah. That would be fine. But the issue is I don't like to use wire nuts with that many wires, with 4 wires in it. I don't want to have to do that. And so I'm just waiting on some Wago nuts for this, and then I'm going to come back to that. I don't like Wago nuts. Y'all don't come at me for that. But it is what it is, and it's just making the best of a bad situation. I would not have wired it like that, but I'm not the one who wired the trailer. Okay, moving on to trim pieces. So this door was not originally trimmed out. I don't know why, but it didn't look good. And so this is me. I'm just making some custom trim for this out of PVC trim. Super easy to cut. And so I just tack it in. I just had to notch out where the door was, and then it fit perfectly. All right, back to this outlet, and you see I'm ready to start connecting the Wagos. Again, not my favorite, but it's like one of those things where there's a possibility that it's going to come loose either way, right? And so I picked the best option of which one I think has the least likeliness of coming loose when it comes to that many wires, and that's why I picked the Wago. Plus, they're flat and compact, and they fit better in the box, especially since I had to buy a deep box for this to hold that many wires. And then the outlet's also bigger than a standard outlet because it's a USB outlet. And so there's just a lot of factors that go into it. This is perfectly safe. Obviously, it's self-contained in a box. It's just when you're going down the road, there's a lot of vibration. And it's like, imagine if your house had an earthquake every time you try to go somewhere. That's what it's like. So I always like to err on the side of caution when it comes to electrical, crimp connectors and all that fun stuff. All right, so I am in the gooseneck part of the trailer right now, and we are going to start working on the trim. All right, so if you remember the last episode, I made a bunch of this trim and then I stained it, and so now it's ready to be installed. I'm just installing it all along the bottom border where the mattress is going to be, and then the ceiling, I'm going to install it where the ceiling meets the wall, and then pretty much all along those cabinets, there's going to be trim. So it's going to look really nice once it's done, nice and uniform, just how I like it. And I don't know about you guys, but I just feel like it looks so bright and homey in here, especially with the wood and the black. I really like how this one turned out. And then it looks even better once I put the cabinet doors on. Okay, so I'm recircling back around to the propane line. Right now, I am capping these propane lines. I think this is 3/8, maybe. It's a flare fitting, a flare cap. And so I'm going to cap these just so I can test the water heater, and I think that's the only thing I'm testing maybe. Anyway, I want to make sure that they don't leak is what I want to make sure. And so if you see right there, I tightened it, I sprayed it with soapy water, and then it kind of bubbled up. And if it bubbles up, that means it's still leaking and you need to tighten it more. So that's what happened here. And then I think the one on the bottom actually had a little piece of copper in it, and so it wasn't sealing properly. So I had to take it out. I kind of re-scraped around where the flare was and then put it back in and tightened it, and that worked perfectly fine. So keep that in the back of your mind if you ever have one that's not sealing properly. Okay, it's new fridge time. Yay! So this is a Bodia, I think. I've never bought this brand, but it had really good reviews on Amazon, and RecPro was out of the fridge that I wanted. And so this one ended up being a winner. It is a 12-volt fridge, which is fantastic. And it actually has an app that you can control the temperature through your phone. So if you want something like colder or warmer going down the road, you can control it. I don't know if I'd ever use that, but I thought it was a cool feature. And obviously it was a little too big for the hole. And so I have to make the hole bigger. Because it couldn't just fit. That would have been entirely too easy. So the way this face frame is made, there's two pieces of wood kind of joined together. And so I'm just going to take the bottom piece of wood out instead of having to like cut it. And then what you see me cutting right here is actually the nails that hold them together. And there's 2 screws right there too. Sorry, I've obviously been talking too much. Anyway, so once that comes out, it fits perfectly in there. So I'm just going to slide it back in, and there's plenty of room for this to move around, which is fantastic. And it looks really good in here too. It's nice and black. All right, now something I want to mention, if you're going to do this and replace your propane and 12 volt or 120 volt fridge with an only 12 volt, right now I'm just hooking up the new wiring, but the new wiring, sometimes the existing wiring that's in the trailer is not a high enough gauge. So sometimes the 12 volt side of the fridge can be like a 14 or a 16 gauge wire, which is way too small for the amount of power that this needs. And so I got really lucky that these wires were they're like a 12, like a 10 or a 12, which is absolutely perfect for what I need. And so if you have a really small gauge of wire, then you're going to need to beef up your wire just so it can hold the amount of voltage and current that it needs to be able to operate the fridge. So keep that side note in your brain. Now, because the fridge was a different size, I am actually going to make a trim piece that is going to go around the fridge that's going to frame it out perfectly and cover up the gaps between the original framing or the original face frame and what's there now. So this is just 1/4 inch plywood. It's like 5mm underlayment. And I have a piece of PVC trim right here that I'm kind of just cutting out to make this even and straight. And then I'm going to cut my first cut right here, the length to size with my jigsaw. And then in order to get nice straight lines, because I like straight lines, I'm going to cut off the excess first with my table saw, and then I'm going to adjust my table saw to, I think it's 1.5 inches, and I'm going to run the sides through the table saw, not all the way through because this is a trim piece. I just want to cut the middle part out. So you'll kind of see what I'm talking about once I actually cut this piece out right here and there. See, it's just like a little trim piece. And then I just kind of get off the yuckies on the edges and I can paint it. I'm painting it black so it kind of blends in and it makes it looks like it's part of the fridge instead of staining it where it would make it look like it's part of the face frame. That was just personal preference. And I also need some black screws to be able to screw this into the face frame. And so I only have white. And so if you screw your white ones into a piece of cardboard and you spray paint them and let them dry, then you have black ones and it's fantastic. All right, now for everybody's favorite part, cleaning out the toilet. So fun fact, when I took the toilet off, the tank was full. And so that's dookie water. In case you're curious. It has just been sitting there in the yard, just hanging out. So anyway, it's not full on dookie. It is diluted dookie, if that makes you feel any better, but it definitely still needed to be cleaned. Thankfully, this toilet was not sitting anywhere where sunlight hit it, and so it hasn't yellowed like a lot of the other toilets that I work with have. So I'm just going to clean it out really well with some, I use some bleach first, obviously, and then Simple Green cleans it really well too. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I can go ahead and put my trim ring in and it fits perfectly, which I knew that because I test fitted it before I painted it. But it just fills in the gaps and makes it look a lot better. And I think I may have missed this step to talk about it, but I did screw the fridge down, and so it's not going to slide around while it's going down the road. So this is more prep work for staining than anything. What I'm cutting right now are the front pieces to the cabinets or the shelves that I built in the bathroom. So I just built the flat part of the shelves, and this is going to be the front part of the shelf that keeps everything from sliding off while you're going down the road. And so I'm really just doing this and cutting it at an angle to match the angle of the wall. That way that one side sits flush with the wall, and I'm going to sand these and stain these when I stain a couple other things later on. So this is a piece of 1/2 inch plywood, and right now I am cutting out the other side of the kitchen cabinet. So if you remember inside the trailer, there's one side that doesn't have anything on it. It's just open shelving. And so I'm going to close it off with 1/2 inch plywood. I prefer 1/2 inch plywood over 3/4 because I just feel like the 3/4 looks too thick. And then I round out my corners. I do like my oscillating sander because it makes a nice flat corner every time. So I'm going to set that aside in my to stain pile while I make these, which will also be in my, actually no, I paint these, so those are not in my to stain pile. So this is the bathroom, and that's the water heater, obviously, and there was a piece of wood that kind of blocked the water heater from all the other shelving, and that's what I'm making. So I'm using hot glue and some scraps of wood because this is kind of a weird angle to cut. And so I'm making myself a template, and then I'm going to take that template, I'm going to bring it out of the cabinet, and then I'm going to go put it on a piece of wood and cut it out. So if you have something that has a lot of weird angles, and several of them, I highly recommend doing this because you're going to get it right every time. So this is 1/2 inch plywood that I have right here. Again, this is the same sheet, just the other side of it. I like working with a square corner. That way I know that my corner, at least one corner, is going to be square. And so I'm kind of just tracing it out and straightening up my corners, and then I'll just cut it out and see if it fits. And I'm just freehanding it here with the circular saw. I'm not super worried if it's completely straight or not. Obviously, I want to get it close, but there is going to be trim all around the bottom of the cabinet to kind of cover up any imperfections. And what's great about this is that I can actually get that one piece that I cut out and flip it and use it as a template for my next one. So I want 2 shelves in this. And I did that because I want to be able to hang clothes in it. So I want to leave enough room where you can hang coats or whatever else my client needs to hold in there. So that's why I only put 2 shelves in here, but I think it's plenty because I have plenty of shelving in that bathroom if she needs extra space somewhere else. Okay, so I've done a little test fit and I made sure that it fit, but before I can put it in, I need these anchor pieces all along the wall to actually hold the shelf up. So this is just 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch, just wood cutouts, nothing special. It's just some 2x4s that I cut up and then drilled some pilot holes in, and I screwed it into the framing of the trailer. I do make sure that it is in the framing and not just in the wall, because then it won't actually hold anything if you don't anchor it properly. So after that, I kind of just plop it in. It's a nice tight fit, which I love. And then I can screw it down. Now I do screw this down instead of stapling it because, again, I want to be able to get to it if something goes wrong. So say at the end, if I need to get to the water heater, well, I can just plop that piece of wood up and I don't have to stick my hand in that small hole to try to access it. So kind of same thing for the shelf that I'm building above that. I need some anchor points. The front piece right there, actually, I don't need anchor points because it's going to be the front of the shelf. But these, I do need some supports, and so I am gluing it, and then I am going to staple these pieces to the actual wood itself, and then I can take the whole thing and put it in the cabinet and screw it into the framing of the cabinet. Makes for a super easy shelf. I did have to cut out a little notch in the front there just because of how the second piece was built, but it does fit phenomenally. The hard part is just making sure that it is even and square, because the trailer isn't square and the trailer isn't level, so creates some issues when you try to make sure that it's straight. But I usually just measure from my bottom shelf up and I make markings on the wall. That way I know it's in the right position. Anyway, day 17 coming soon. I'm currently in the process of ripping a roof off of a trailer, so I hope to have some footage of that for you guys too. Have a great afternoon.